Good morning, and welcome to Beware 30-minute reviews. I am Adam, and I am tired. So, I wasn't talking about Harley Quinn today, but there's news. So we'll be discussing that instead. This latest news is the latest slew of cuts from Warner Brothers Discovery as we get to close to merger, or as the merger has happened and they're, cutting stuff to take advantage of tax incentives. We previously reported on Batgirl being canceled. We reported on, what was the other one? There's another big one, I feel like. Scoob Holiday Heist got canceled, and then they did a first round of shows and movies that were already released and removed them from the HBOMax platform, like American Pickle and other things like that. Then they did a second round of removals like that this past weekend, where they removed things like Infinity Train, which was a Cartoon Network show for the first 3 seasons, and then the 4th season was an HBO Max original. Then there was, what else was there? There was also, what the hell was it called? Summer Camp Island got canceled. There were a few other ones like that were we're pulling them from the platform. About 200 episodes of Sesame Street got pulled from the platform. We very briefly touched on this on Sunday. But then yesterday's news came, and it was late in the day, probably because they knew it wouldn't be well received. Because, here it is, almost 11 o'clock on the East Coast, and I'm seeing news, and it's recent, that they have canceled 2 Looney Tunes show holiday specials. A Family Matters animated holiday special, a movie based on the Amazing World of Gumball, which is a not terrible show that aired in late 2000s, early 2010s, maybe just early 2010s, with this, kind of eclectic blended animation style. There was a movie for that also got canceled, and then there was also the one that probably is the most attention-grabbing because of how vast the fan base is. Batman Caped Crusader also got canceled, which was Bruce Timm and J.J. Abrams' Batman, the animated series revival, and that got canceled. Now, I have some thoughts on this. Number one, if I'm someone who has an original idea for an animated show, or has an original idea for a limited series, you now have one less place to pitch. And in terms of animated, I would argue even a few less places to pitch, because if you're something that's on the cusp of being kids or adults, you could have pitched a Cartoon Network or Adult Swim, which are 2 different networks technically, but they share the same band. And then, because the thing is, it's a lot of these shows that are now removed or no longer in contention, they're shows that got their start. Close Enough was one of the shows that was an HBO Max original. I think it was a launch title for HBO Max. And that first season was great. And admittedly, I didn't go back and watch seasons 2 or 3. Not for lack of liking the show. It's just I forgot about it. It had the same kind of sense of humor as regular show, which is J.G. Quintel's show before it. But, that kind of thing. I loved Infinity Train. It was a fantastic show. That explored complex topics. I just feel like the issue we have here is that if you have these shows that are kind of they could go either way, you have 2 less networks. If it's expressly an adult show, you have 1 less network, and if you have expressly a kids show, you have 1 less network. And I think the problem is, it's kind of not a great situation for people in that, who are in that sphere. And if Warner Brothers is looking to expand talent pools, I think being hey, we have to, we're looking for people, we want you to come on. I think anyone who is looking to come on is like, well, what's the point? Because the thing is, it's like when you take your first job running a show or doing whatever, you're typically not going to get paid as much as someone who's been doing it for years. You're typically not going to get, you're not going to pull the same money that Bruce Timm is pulling on your first show. That's just the way it is. It's scaling based on experience. And if we're looking at... Did I bring my headphones with? Yes, I did. Okay, good. If we're looking at, these shows that exist in this space, the ultimate issue that I have, at least, is, these people who are doing this can use it and be like, hey, so this is our new, this is our new thing. This is what we did, and we're going to release this. I can point to, like, if I'm the guy who created Infinity Train, I can point to seasons 1 to 4 of Infinity Train on HBOMax and be like, this is my calling card. Look at what I did. If I'm the guy if I'm J.G. Quintel, I can point to regular show and Close Enough. If I'm Pendleton Ward, I can point to Adventure Time, and you can be like, this is what I did, see, this is what I'm capable of, I'm interested in picking up in bringing this to your network. The problem is, by continuing to take these off wide viewing, you take away the ability for certain people to build a fan base and build a community that they can be like, oh, look what I got. I have this, and then here's an audience that I'm bringing with me to this show. I'm bringing with me this wide audience that is very interested in whatever I'm doing this week. So they will show up for me, and they will, they will come and watch this. And by taking away the ability to show this, that is something that is hard to do. That's not great for them. And it's like we saw the directors of Batgirl were talking this week, and they said, like, we went to the servers to try and get something to save to our phones, so that way we could show it off and be like, look, this is what we did. And Warner Brothers had wiped the server of any record of it. And it's like, that's fucked up. Because you're not even letting them use it as resume material at this point. Like, that is colossally fucked up. And I'm looking at this whole situation, and I'm just like, why is this the world that they're building for themselves? And I think the only reason that I can think of that they're going through such great lengths to cull content and do all of that is Zaslav wanted to be a studio executive. He wanted to do that, and he ended up at Warner Brothers Discovery. Now he has that, so he's getting rid of everything to be like, I saved Warner Bros. And again, I have no inside information. This is just basic speculation on my part. I think he's looking at it and being like, I want to be the one who is, making all decisions and all of that. And I think this is a gamble. This is a pretty sizable gamble for him. Because if it works out, he's going to be in the clear. And it could work out great for him. And he'll be like, oh, look what I did. I saved the company. I did all of this, and now it's better than it was before. I don't think that's likely. Because, like, here's the thing. We know what's slated to come. We know what was slated to come. What we don't know is what could come. And based on what we know was coming, I don't think that it's likely that we would get something better than what we knew was coming. And there are still projects on the cusp. It's like, look, they're keeping, Black Adam. They're keeping Shazam. They're keeping Aquaman. For whatever reason, they're keeping The Flash. And I just don't know what else they're doing. Like, Blue Beetle is still up in the air. That was in production. It's unknown if Blue Beetle's going to happen. And according to them, the Green Lantern show is still ongoing. The Green Lantern show is still ongoing. And if I'm like Greg Berlanti, like, allegedly Greg Berlanti's in the running to be the Kevin Feige-like person for DC Films, which is a great choice. If you're going to do that, you do need someone at the head of that studio subsidiary to be like, this is what we're doing, this is our 10-year plan, this is the story we're going to tell over the course of, 5, 10, 15, 20 movies, then you do need someone there who can do that. And what better person to do that than someone who already had a 10-year plan for what to do with DC characters and do it moderately well. It was on a much smaller budget, but when you give them a lot more money, it'll work out a lot better. So I think that, like, if it works out, it's a huge gamble. But at the end of the day, all he's doing is ostracizing people as it is right now. This here, what we're witnessing right now, is so much worse than the decision in late 2020 to move all of the new releases for 2021 to streaming. And you know what? Nolan went on his tirade, and I'll give Nolan credit because Nolan's staying out of this. He's no longer at Warner Brothers. But, Nolan went on his tirade about how when he went to bed, he worked for the best studio, and when he woke up, he worked for the best streaming service. And, maybe that's it. Maybe it's Zaslav being like, look, we've ostracized talent with this, and we want Nolan back. And it's like, well, or people like Nolan to stay with us. It's like, I don't think that's the case, but I feel like that it's the kind of thing where you look at the situation and you're like, this whole scenario is majorly, what's I'm looking for? Like, it's not great for incoming new talent at any stage of production, be it production designers, be it actors, be it editors, anyone involved it basically has a line in the sand now saying that before, we could have just, done all the work and not released the project, and that would have been, something that would happen mostly to writers. That's really a writer issue where they go and do all the work on the project and the project never comes to fruition. But the writers get paid on that. Like, famously, Brian Lynch, the writer behind Despicable Me and a bunch of other stuff, has made a lot of money writing projects that never get made. And it's one of those things, like, you look at this and you go, well, now if I'm going to put in all this effort, if you're someone young, like, the person I feel the worst for in this whole situation is Leslie Grace, who basically had to take a year off from her career and auditioning for other roles to shoot and reshoot Batgirl with costume fittings and getting into shape, and I'm not saying she wasn't in shape, but, like, getting into superhero fighting shape and learning the choreography and shooting the actual movie and being available for reshoots and, all of this stuff, like, I don't have as much sympathy for Keaton because Keaton, has the money to do that. Leslie Grace doesn't have the prolific, back catalog of, titles to fall back on and be like, oh, well, here are other things I did. And that she took that job being like, okay, I'm going to play Batgirl. That's going to get me in people's houses, because at the time it was an HBOMax show. But not only that, but it's going to make it so that way I'm, it's going to give me something that can be like, I was Batgirl. And that will give me more credibility to get other projects in the future. Because I've worked on a big production and all of that kind of stuff. And it's that kind of thing where we watch all of this happen, and you're just kind of like, well, she got screwed on it. The city of Glasgow got screwed on too, and they're not thrilled about it either. Because after a movie shoots somewhere, especially a big tentpole movie like this, that shoots on location somewhere, in this case, Glasgow was a stand-in for Gotham, and Glasgow was not thrilled about the fact that they're not releasing the movie now, because it's like they were expecting the tourist boom to come. So now, if you're trying to find a place that's going to let you shut down a town or a city or whatever to shoot your movie, that's not like, a studio in Atlanta or, somewhere in New York, you're going to have a harder time doing it, especially in smaller locations. Because it's like, well, the movie could just not come out now, and then we're taking this hit, and we won't see that recouped ever. It is all around not a great situation for most of the people involved. And it's like, I just feel like the whole, what's it called, the whole situation could have been, I don't want to say handled better, because like on top of that too, to find out via social media and via articles in Variety and Deadline that your projects that you had worked on for so long had been canceled, that's probably gotta be one of the worst things about this. Because it's like, on top of that, you're not even getting the decency of the studio being like, oh hey, you know, we're pulling this from release, or this is no longer on here, or something like that. You're finding out after the fact, and you're finding out from seeing it online in a news article, and then you're like, oh, well, that's fucked up. And then the fact that they're not staying on HBOMax and all of that is also going to hurt people long term, because, you know, there are, you know, contracts in place about residuals on streaming services, and the residuals are not, I wouldn't say no to the money that comes in from a residual on a streaming service based on length and all of that. Do I think that, like, you know, it's fair that to save money they're pulling these so that way they don't have to pay residuals to actors and writers and animators? And I don't think it is. And it's that kind of thing where it's like the WGA should probably step in. That's how I feel about it. The WGA should probably file a grievance on behalf, because it's like, look, you know, we agreed to do this with the agreement that we're following this, and you're pulling it from the streamer, and it's like Close Enough debuted a few weeks ago, and they pulled it from the streamer. Like, I don't think it's even been a full month since Close Enough Season 3 released, and they pulled it. So, like, if I'm you know, I don't know if, you know, WGA contracts cover animation. I have a feeling they may not. But either way, if that's the case, and if that's what's happening, they definitely should, you know, appeal and be like, the fuck. The Screen Actors Guild at least should get involved and be like, what the fuck? If the stated reason is to not pay residuals, then why is the Screen Actors Guild not getting involved and being like, hang on, we're going to bring this to arbitration, and be like, well, why are we not doing this? Because just because, you know, you bought the company doesn't mean you get to now, you know, screw people like this. And if that's the case, where it's like, oh, well, that can happen, then that's another thing that may impact people's decisions to work with Warner Brothers Discovery in the future. Where it's like, oh, you know, I not only may my show be pulled, where I won't be able to build a fan base, but on top of that, I'm not getting residuals on that. That, like, you know, and I did that work with the thought that, you know, I'm gonna have mailbox money coming from this. Like, I'm gonna have money coming in, and it's like, this is your residual check from, like, you know, Distant Lands, or this is your residual check from, you know, all whatever, and it's like, it's a good amount of money that's now not gonna come in. It's just and the thing is too, it's like the Nolan situation was, we are doing something to take advantage of the, you know, this colossal situation that is unprecedented in modern times, and that is, you know, we still have to make some money, so pushing HBO Max subscriptions via, you know, releasing theatrical movies is a good way to do that. I understand that. I can get behind that, and I can understand that thought process. And then on top of that too, as we got later and later into the pandemic, and we saw more and more, you know, movies come out, and we saw what they were doing at the box office, maybe they would have done a little bit more. But by the end of the pandemic, or by the end of 2021, the movies that were coming out were making as much as one would expect. Like, if Dune is pulling more than Blade Runner, I think that's what they expected. Like, maybe Dune would have done a little more domestically, but not too much. It's just bizarre to me that it's like, you know, for the early pandemic it was more necessary, but as we went on, it was like, all right, whatever, and it's fine. It's you know, it all worked out at the end of the day. This, I think, is going to have a longer implications for Warner Brothers than what's it called did. The HBOMax streaming thing, because I think that was all resolved, all the day and date streaming issues, because like there was the issue at Disney with Scarlett Johansson. She sued and she got paid, and then same thing with Cruella, and you know, Emma Stone didn't sue, but Emma Stone did sign on to do a sequel, and they're working on the sequel now, and you know, I'm just looking at this and it's like, I think all of that got worked out, because then there were contracts with Legendary that had to be reworked, and a bunch of other things, and that's all resolved. This is still a very active and very volatile situation, and I don't know how people are going to react when they have the chance to go elsewhere. But especially with the how many streamers there are, and how much animation is being done everywhere. But on that note, we will wrap up there for today. So keep an eye on the situation. It's ever evolving, and I don't think we're going to get a positive, you know, thing from this for the foreseeable future. That said, Warner Bros. Discovery, if you need animated content, give me a call. I got some original content. I got a bunch of original content. But until then, have a great rest of your week.